Have you guys ever seen this many yellow art supplies in one place? Cause I don't think I have. Hey y'all, it's Alex and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm bringing you a type of video that I've wanted to make for quite a while now. It's making a piece entirely with one color family. Now, I definitely wasn't thinking yellow when I first started planning for this piece, but I posted to a story on my Instagram asking for suggestions, because off the top of my head, I'd either want to do one of all blue or one of all red, but I kind of wanted to actually challenge myself, because that was the entire point of doing this type of piece. And the first person who responded to my story suggested yellow because it's their favorite color, so I'm going to thank Kuozi Fox. I really hope I'm pronouncing your username correctly, and I will link down below because they have amazing art. You should definitely go check them out. To kind of go over the items that I'm putting down on swatch paper here, I've got Copic markers, I've got Ecoline watercolors in both the brush pen and the dip pen kind of setup. I also hope you guys don't mind that I chucked all of my metallic golds in here, because I can't avoid it, and it makes such beautiful paint water. I also have this printed paper that I've been trying to hold on to for a little while for a future video, but I saw that I had this honeycomb pattern paper, and it's very rare that I can actually keep something that has honeycomb patterns in it. I usually get very uncomfortable, but the pattern is light enough on this paper. Speaking of light, I tried doing the line art in the yellow color ace pencil, but I couldn't see it. You can actually see it better on camera than I could see it in person, which is mind-boggling to me. So instead I switched over to doing regular pencil. Now, since I had the honeycomb paper, I wanted to draw some kind of bee-related thing, and I'm not quite happy with how the bee turned out in all of my sketches. I first tried doing my my little D-shaped bee that I usually use in like smaller cartoon things, but then I did a more realistic bee and that worked out better, and I decided that I wanted to have this warrior woman sitting on the back of this massive bee. And in the original plan, I wanted to have the feast be like a full body of the bee with like this tiny person on it, but once I drew that character design, I knew that it had to feature her. I want to get out of the habit of doing a lot of character designs. I want to kind of broaden my horizons to doing maybe like some drawings of miscellaneous items, because I feel like I'm kind of a one-trick pony sometimes when it comes to my finished pieces. However, I really ended up enjoying this character, and the story I kind of developed for her as I was drawing her is maybe she's a type of pixie. Perhaps in some sort of civil war, a dissenting sect of pixies had their wings ripped from them, and now they have to rely on other flying beings in order to give them flight. And maybe this woman is now tearing on a warpath towards victory over the winged pixies. I don't know. I will be honest with you, I'm kind of BSing that on the spot. Like, there was an inkling of an idea, but in the weeks since I've had this in the wing, but I've been toying around with the idea of like what's going on in this character's life and so on and so forth. And for those of you that didn't enjoy that pun, don't worry, there will be many more. Get it? Moving on from my absolutely terrible puns, let's talk more about the supplies. So, in working with my yellow supplies, I came to a startling realization that I've had some of these supplies for years, at least in the case of like the highlighters and the Sharpies, and then no, I've had my set of Copics for years now, but yeah, a good half of these I have never touched. I just don't use yellow that often. The main colors I can think of that I've used are the top Sharpie marker that you can kind of see in frame on my swatch sheet, and the Copic, let's see, there are 3 Copics that I readily reach for: Y11, Y35, and Y26. And those are all pretty dark colors as far as yellows go, because I just don't like that bright buttercup yellow most often. I do reach a lot for these yellow ochre tones. Speaking of yellow ochre, the paint that I'm using on the legs of the bee is the Dr. P.H. Martin's Bombay India ink in yellow ochre. And I don't know, the texture of it is just bizarre. I shook it well, like I have little glass beads in there to make sure there isn't an excess of settled pigment. However, it just applied really globby. It was very viscous. I'm gonna have to test out those a little bit more. There are some of those that are still giving me some problems. However, this piece did reinforce my absolute love of all things metallic gold, because the only way to say it is incredibly crass, and I am a slut for metallic gold paints. I mean, why go for a flat gold when you can go for a metallic? Of course, the answer is so that way you can actually scan it, you dingus, but my hubris just gets in the way. Moving on from that point, I kind of added in the metallic gold wherever it would really fit. So I kind of put that on her body, most on the bracers, on the pauldrons, which are the shoulder caps, the neck guard, and the leg adornments, I guess is the best way to put it. The reason why I didn't put it on the breastplate that you would I guess you would call it, the reason why I didn't put it on the chest area, which would usually be a breastplate in plate mail armor, I wanted the armor to be more reminiscent of a type of armor that I've seen recreated in a historical documentary. I'm pretty sure I saw the video on YouTube, so I can link it down below. But it's actually not metal armor, it's entirely made out of cloth, and you stuff it really thick with wool, and it actually is able to block just as well as most metal armor can. And I figured in a race of beings that, like, they've evolved for flight, they would want to have as light of armor as they can while still being effective. So while it is still a heavy armor that is able to protect you, this cloth armor makes a little bit more sense in my head with how the society would have grown. So that's why I didn't use a lot of metallic paint for her armor. So instead I decided to put it all around the body using my technically custom Dr. P.H. Martin calligraphy ink. I just mixed in black ink with it so that way it had a longer life. But I use this a lot as a background color. I actually have used it in another video that I can link below, and it's actually the video of making my icon. So if you haven't seen that, definitely give that a watch. Shameless self-promotion, I know. But moving further along with this piece, if there were things that I would change, I would, well, that's not the right way to say this. If there were 3 items that I would take out of this color challenge, just kind of like omit them from my personal record of items that I own. The yellow ochre I would have omitted because it just ruins the texture of the legs, in my opinion. It just doesn't look good, either on camera or in person. It's just rough. And when I tried doing shading later over top of it with the Sharpie marker that I have sitting on top of my swatch board there, it just kind of laid on top of it weirdly. It's hard for me to say now that I'm recording this audio a couple weeks after I filmed this, but I remember having trouble with the legs, specifically during the shading. The second thing that I would probably remove from this set of colors would be the Liquitex acrylic paint. It's like in this little square on its own in my swatch sheet but for good reason, because it shouldn't be allowed to touch anything else ever. I am not a big fan of acrylic ink. I am not a big fan of acrylic paints. I very much prefer acrylic inks instead. And that's purely for texture. I've never been able to get a good flat color out of an acrylic paint. Like, not to mention, the acrylic paint I have is from at least 2009, if not 2010. I bought it in order to make Homestuck horns for cosplay. And I haven't used it since maybe 2014. So maybe there's a texture issue, however, I highly doubt that. And it was so hard to not get it to kind of ball up, and I had to lean in really close to make sure that I didn't paint it over on top of the background and then mess it up. And it also didn't cover, I accidentally have a little dot inside of the halberd there that you can see, and I was like, oh, the acrylic paint will cover it up. It didn't. I don't know what I'm doing wrong with it. Maybe sometime in the future I will use acrylic paints for a video, though it's unlikely that will be anytime soon, but we'll see. Things change, and I'm definitely going to test out a few new mediums for myself in this upcoming year, because gotta push those boundaries. Surprisingly, the third item that I would cut from all of my supplies isn't the highlighters, it would actually be the yellow-red 14 Copic. I just feel like it's a little bit too orange in comparison with the color, with the color palette. I used it on her cheeks as a blush, and I thought, oh no, this is way too orange. There was another one of the line-on gel pens that I cut for being too orange, and I originally was going to cut the YR14, but it snuck back into my pile somehow, and then I used it, so I just stuck with it. If anything, this piece helped me iron out which yellows are my favorite. Of course, Y26 is one of my top favorites, but the Sharpie marker yellow, the dark yellow, turned out to be a really nice dark tone. I've actually added it to my day-to-day list. I also, for the background, briefly attempted putting in this buttercup yellow kind of spacer, just so it would have multiple borders, but it just looked too cluttered with it, so I just decided to leave it out. I think for a piece with as much detail as this one, it was better to go with the less complicated background. And with a few extra touches from the glitter pens, we're finished. Something I'm really sad the process doesn't really catch from filming above is the detail that these glitter pens give for the lines in the bodice and the freckles on her face, because that is my absolute favorite part of this piece. And just a quick spoiler for things to come, I enjoyed filming this piece so much that I've actually done 2 more single color family pieces. So you guys will see those eventually. I won't be posting them one after the other because I don't want to overrun you with this kind of stuff. However, if you'd feel so inclined, hit that subscribe button and check me out on my other social media handles. Thanks, and I'll see you all in the next one.